I've got 3 PS4s with broken disk drives. Let's take them apart and see if we can fix them. 2 of them are PS4 Slims, and 1 of them is a PS4 Pro. We're gonna start with the Slims, and then we'll get to the PS4 Pro after that. Here's the first PS4 Slim we're gonna take a look at. For the top cover, this one has already been taken off by someone, but for these, you can just pop it off like this, pull it back, and then you can see access to the disk drive. Now this one, as you can see, is all bent up, so that's gonna be the first problem we need to look at. This one also does have plastic welds that are all right here. So for these, basically you have to get like a screwdriver or pliers or something and kind of round the heads off until you can get the metal piece up over them like that. So we need to take the screws off of this metal plate. We also need to take the screws out of the power supply so we can pop it up a little bit, and then we can get the metal plate off and look at the disk drive underneath. Another thing I should mention is I do normally hook these up and test them before I start to take them apart, but since I knew this one had the bent metal plate, I know that that's got to be fixed before it'll work at all, so I'm going to look at that first, and then we can test it if needed after that. In order to get this power supply out, there's a screw on the other side we need to take out, so we'll do that next. The screw under the warranty sticker comes out first. This one's already out, so we don't have to do that. Then we take this screw out. Now the disk drive will come loose. We just need to pop it up that much so we can get this metal plate off. Okay, let's see what kind of damage is under the plate. Actually, doesn't look too bad. Everything actually looks pretty good on this so far. I will take this metal plate off, see if there's anything stuck in the disk drive, and then we'll go from there. Everything inside the drive that I can see looks fine. It's possible there's a laser problem, but another common thing is for this plate to be bent. This one actually looks pretty straight. Maybe just a little bend to it, but really not bad at all. Now we can actually plug it in and test it just like this. So we're gonna plug it in, try to put a disc in it, and see what it does. So let's see if it'll take a disc in. Power's on, takes the disc. Whoa, got a little fan problem here. There we go. So we had a part stuck in the fan. Okay, it looks like this disk drive is actually working fine. So the problem with this is this top metal plate. As you can see, it is very bent. So what's happening with this is this metal plate is actually catching on these arms. So these black arms can't open when you get a disc to put in there with this metal plate on here. So what we need to do is bend this metal plate back to its original condition, and then we'll have a fully working disk drive. So these metal plates are usually not too hard to bend, and it doesn't have to be perfect. We just need to make sure that it's not going to cause these arms to get stuck. So that's the main thing we're looking for here. So you can see we've got a big bend right there, so we need to make sure that's out. A little better. We just need to make sure that it's not going to get those arms aren't going to be caught in it. What do you think? Is it ready? Should we try it? Pretty close. Okay, not perfect, but that's good enough to try. The other thing I want to mention is you notice this little black piece right here was caught up in the fan. So what would have happened, even if they could have fixed this one themselves, that would have been caught in the fan if they hadn't noticed it, and that would have caused it to overheat and possibly the fan burn out. So if you're ever trying to do this yourself, make sure and watch exactly where all the pieces go. I've seen this piece caught up in the disk drive. This piece is often either missing or caught somewhere. So If you decide to do these kind of repairs yourself, pay very close attention where all the little parts and pieces are, because that can cause further problems that weren't there in the beginning. Now we need to pop this power supply up. You can push it back down. Now, unfortunately, these plastic rivets never quite go back the same as they were before we took them apart. So what I'm gonna do is just try and squish this out so it'll at least keep this part of the metal plate down. It's really not that big of a deal if it's up a little bit, but I like to try and get it back to as close to original condition as I can. You can see just that little bit helped keep it in place. So the first model of PS4 Slim was way better at this because these were all screws and instead of these plastic welds. But unfortunately, Sony decided to make it more difficult to repair. Surprise, surprise. Okay, that one's down pretty good. That one's gonna stay there. Let's try and do this one now. So we got the metal plate down good enough. Let's turn it back on and see if it'll actually play a disc. Okay, here we go. Let's see what happens. Good? And there we go. The first PS4 Slim is working great. Now we can move on to the second PS4 Slim. So for this second PS4 Slim, I don't actually know what's wrong with it, so I'm gonna put a disc in and see what the disc drive does. Nothing at all. So, oh, wait. Okay. So far, this disk drive actually works normally. I will need to take the top cover off because when I first put the disk up to the drive, it didn't take it initially. So, yeah, so it keeps going. The rollers inside the disk drive keep going even after the disk is out. And now the disk drive won't even spin the disk. Interesting. So let's get the top of the PS4 Slim taken off so we can take that metal plate off and inspect the disk drive. So this is the original version of PS4 Slim. We've got screws here instead of the plastic welds, so this one will be much easier to take apart. I wish they would have stuck with this for the other models, but unfortunately they chose to make it less repairable, as so many companies are doing these days. Now we have the metal plate ready to take off, so what's your guess as to what's wrong? We do have to remember that at first it didn't take the disc at all, and then it did take the disc, and when it took the disc, it read it just fine. I took the disc back out, put it back in, and then it wouldn't read the disc at all. So what's your guess? My guess is there must be something maybe stuck in the disc drive or something loose in there, something like that, causing it to not be able to read it or pull the disc in. But it's time to take a look. Okay, so this is definitely the problem. These arms were stuck open. So if they're stuck open, the PS4 is gonna think there's a disc in there already, which is why these rollers kept moving. But why did they stick open? Usually this is caused by this plate being bent somehow. I don't see right offhand how this one's bent, but it must be. And now it's opening and closing just fine, just after that little bit of playing with. Let's take this metal plate off and inspect it more. See no obvious problems in here. So what do we have here? Some of the things I'm looking for is anything like these little tabs. Sometimes they'll get caught under the metal plate, anything like that. Looks like maybe, so something causes it to get stuck. stuck right there, but what is it? So looking at this a little bit more, I do see maybe a little problem right here. If I put any sort of pressure on that, it'll hit right there on that rivet that goes through this white arm right there. So I think maybe that's what it was doing when I first opened it, is getting hit right there. So these can be really tricky to bend correctly. All I'm gonna do is push down on this part a little bit, because we just need this to go down just a little bit. And then we also need to make sure that plate that goes over this is bent up a little bit so it's not putting any pressure on these arms at all. So here goes. It doesn't need much, just a little bit. That actually is a lot better, I think. Go a little more. If I put a lot of pressure on it, then it will get stuck, but a little bit of pressure and it does fine. So let's bend that metal plate just a little bit to make sure there's no interference there, and then we'll test it again. So here we go. I'm gonna bend this plate up just a little bit in the front and the back, just to make sure there's no interference at all. See, there's just a little bend to that. So do you think that was enough to fix it? Let's get it put back together and see if it's fixed. Now all the screws are in for the metal plate. Let's see if it'll take a disc in and read it normally. Good news so far. Takes it in. Okay, that works good. Let's eject it. Okay. I'm gonna try this a few more times and make sure it works correctly each time. And it seems to be working perfectly. I will test this a bunch more off screen before I send it back to the customer to make sure it's working 100% correctly. But number 2 is fixed. Time to move on to the PS4 Pro. Now I'm guessing since these two were easy fixes, the Pro is gonna be a hard one. Let's find out. And now let's test the PS4 Pro. Oh, it takes the disc in, but it doesn't play. Doesn't spin up. Let's see if it comes out. So it will accept and eject the disc, but it just doesn't spin up. Now the things that usually cause that, it could be something like something stuck in the disk drive, or it could also be a faulty laser, or maybe there'll be some surprise for us. Let's take it apart and check it out. Now the annoying thing about the PS4 Pro when it comes to the disk drive is it's not anywhere near as easy as the Slim. You can't just take the top cover off and look at it. When you take the top cover off, you see this black part. This is where the disk drive is. So instead of just having this open or having a removable plate here that you could just take off and look at, it's all covered with this mid-frame plastic. So unfortunately, we have to disassemble basically the entire PS4 Pro to get to the disk drive. But that's what we do best here at TronicsFix, so let's take it apart. And we're there. I told you had to take pretty much the whole thing apart. And now we can get the disk drive out. Now let's take a look underneath. I usually take this plate off first just so I can inspect the inside. Judging by the amount of dirt and hair I see in this, I'm guessing we're gonna need a new laser on this one. So nothing at all stuck in the drive. That all looks normal. And I see no problems on the metal plate. So when I see nothing else wrong and the disk drive won't spin up when there's a disk in there, but it does make noise, that's when I normally replace the laser. So what I do is mark where this ribbon cable is, because if it's too short in there, then it won't let the laser go as far as it needs to. So now when I go to put this back together, there's going to be a mark right there. You just have to match that up with the sticker. Then we can take the sticker off. Carefully, we don't want to mess this ribbon cable up. There we go. We'll just pull it back, roll it up on itself, and that'll keep it out of the way. And now we can take all the screws off to get down to the laser. There we go. Now we just need to open it this far so we can get to the laser. I always inspect the ribbon cable. I have seen a couple of those where the ribbon cable's been faulty. This one looks fine. Now that's out of the way. Now we can pull this piece up. There we go. Now we're ready to replace the laser. The laser we use for these is the KES496A, and I will leave a link to all the parts and tools I use for this in the description below. It'll take you right to my Amazon shop where I have everything linked. I usually just leave this in the package till I'm ready to go. That will keep any dust and debris from getting on it. Now to remove this laser, I take this black screw off back here. Just kind of leave that there, that'll come loose in a minute. Then we get this little clip, we push down and over, and that will loosen the clip, and we can pull it out. Now with that clip loose, this rail will be loose as well. With that rail loose, we can pull the rail out like this. Then we can pull the laser out. We'll grab our new laser, hook it to the rail, push it down on here. Push the rail back through. Put the clip back in. Then put the screw in on the other side. And now we have the laser replaced. Once that's done, we can put the laser back in the disk drive and the disk drive back in the PS4 Pro. Now we'll get the bottom plate in the heatsink and the motherboard in, and then we'll connect it up just enough to test it. Once again, the perfect amount of thermal paste. So I put it together just enough to test the disk drive, because if there's more work I need to do, I don't want to have to disassemble the entire console again. Let's see if it works. It takes it in, but does it spin? Oh yeah! Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you learned something. I'll put a playlist up on the screen if you want to hang out with me more and see me fix more stuff, and I'll see you over there.